Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly. It's your friend Rick from Blind, and today I'm going to introduce you all to George Bezerra, who's the Senior Vice President and Head of Data at the Knot Worldwide. He's responsible for leading the global data team across analytics, data engineering, and data science. George has been in the data space for more than 10 years and was previously Vice President of Data at Frontdoor, where he led the data engineering, machine learning, and data science teams, and TripAdvisor, where he built the data science and analytics functions and led the development of personalization algorithms, in addition to computer vision and natural language processing models. The Knot Worldwide is a global technology company that provides content, tools, products, and services for couples organizing a celebration. At the core of the Knot Worldwide's business is its industry-leading global online wedding vendor marketplace, which connects couples with local wedding professionals and offers a comprehensive suite of personalized wedding websites, planning tools, invitations, and registry services that make wedding planning easier for couples around the globe. Thanks for coming on the show, George.
Thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hopefully, I did your background some justice, but just in case I didn't, can you walk us through your career, George?
Yeah, absolutely. And you did justice more than that. And maybe we have I spent time in a few other companies, and in fact, we've met each other and worked together at Metro Mile. But yeah, I can walk you through. I have an academic background. So starting from the very beginning, I did, a master's in machine learning, applied to bioinformatics, a PhD in computer science, postdoc in computer architecture and big data. So I've been around in terms of research and academics. I I'm from Brazil originally, so I did kind of my undergrad and my master's there, and I came to the US to do my PhD in computer science, uh, and was a long, like 6 years journey doing a PhD. From there, I went to MIT for my postdoc, and I think what happened at that point, by the time of my PhD, I felt like the trajectory was a bit too long, and I was already kind of losing a little bit of the excitement for research. I did do the PhD, was kind of a nice opportunity, and it's kind of the next thing that you do as an academic. And so in that process, being in that environment, learning from others, I was already starting to think about, should I try industry? Should I try something different? And I had a friend who talked to me and said, "Hey, have you heard about this data science thing? Like, I've been doing this. It's really nice. Like, you have the background for it." So data science was nascent at that time. And I did some research and I'm like, wow, this sounds like a really good opportunity. It mixes some of the academic background that I have with the industry. I wanted to learn something new, do something different. And I did, take the leap. I got a job at TripAdvisor. I was there for 5.5 years. I started as a data scientist, individual contributor. It was kind of a how do I say, an experiment for them, like the first data scientist that they hired in that kind of business unit, and to see if there was like an opportunity there. There was, like, after a year, we started having some really good results and started to build a team. So I felt like I was a little bit at the right place at the right time. Uh, Over time, we did do a lot of data science and ML work across a bunch of different areas. You talked about some of those. And I left as senior director of data science and analytics. From there, I that's how I ended up at Metromile. I was like, well, I need a new challenge. I need something new. I wasn't living in Boston, and I wanted to try maybe going to the West Coast to see how things were, and that's how Metromile showed up as an opportunity. It sounded like a really exciting company. And I went there. as VP of data science, building models, working with a technical team. From there, I went to a company called Front Door, where Front Door is the largest home warranty vendor or supplier in the country. And that company was going through a transition of being a not technical company to becoming a tech company. So I saw a little bit of both worlds. And we were developing a really interesting stack there. And for me, what was the most interesting about that role is that it got me to experience managing data engineering, like doing kind of the more engineering side of the work in data. We did a lot of that. We worked with Snowflake, we worked with DBT, building Python ingestion pipelines, et cetera, et cetera. And that prepared me for my next job, which is where I am now. They're not worldwide, where we do everything. Like I'm head of data here. We do full stack, and so you name it, we do analytics, data science. We do machine learning, we do AI, and we also do like the BI and data pipelines, data ops, ML ops. Everything is kind of part of our team, and it's a great team. It's a really nice company. I'm super happy about the role itself and what kind of encompasses. So that's how it culminated, I guess. I don't know that there was a master plan. It's just thinking about what's next, and I ended up here.
George, can you help me out? Because for myself, this might be a naive question, but for myself, for the audience, when you say data scientist, I've always seen when you have lists of like the top 10 tech jobs, data scientist is always up there. What does it really mean when you strip out all the jargon? Like when it goes down, like what on a day-to-day basis as a day, like, are you a mad scientist, a mad data scientist, a regular scientist? How does that work? Do you have a lab? Like what goes on behind the scenes?
That's a great question, and I would say the answer can be a bit confusing. So I'll try to walk you through because it's changed over time, and it means different things in different companies. And so we just have to accept that there isn't a universal definition of data scientist. I think in the beginning, it was more tied to people that are building models. Like I'll share my perspective, by the way. That's by no means the universal perspective. So, and building models, like machine learning models, statistical models, and applying those concepts to business problems, right? But over time, what started to happen is that the term became so popular that everyone wanted to be a data scientist, but not everybody had a PhD, but it's still a very technical role. But what happened is that different companies started to create different nomenclatures or different approaches for what data science means. For example, at Airbnb, you have three kinds of data scientists, right? You have a data scientist that does algorithms. And I don't know if they still have this denomination, but I think that's still what they do, which is algorithms, the person that's actually building models. Then you have data scientists, I think it's causal inference, which are people that are doing like experimentation and statistics. And I think there is another one that's like data science analytics, which is more like analysts, and they're called data scientists. Or companies like Meta, where the role of data scientist is a lot more like an analytics role. So what's happening in the industry is that the term data science or data scientist has been, in quotes, bastardized or diluted. Diluted is a better word, to encompass a lot of different functions and roles. And it used to be very prestigious. It's becoming a little less prestigious, I would say, because of that. And so a lot of what's happening is that analysts are becoming more like data scientists. Data scientists want to become more like ML scientists or ML engineers, and ML engineers want to be like AI engineers, AI scientists. So that's a little bit of what's happening. One interesting anecdote, back at TripAdvisor, we used to have multiple kind of decentralized data scientists science teams. And we had a team that I worked in the hotel, no, sorry, in the attractions, like things to do, experiences in vacation rentals. And that my team was called data science team. And there's another team that was the ML team. The ML engineering team worked on the kind of hotels area, right? But we essentially did the same job. It's just we're operating in different areas, but we had different names. And I would have conversations with that team where, you know, I would get to them, oh man, I'm thinking of retitling our team as machine learning because I've been attracting a lot of people that have analytics profile, and I want to have people that are more coders and more like ML stuff. And they would actually, you know what? I've been thinking about transitioning to data science because I've been attracting a lot of software engineers, and I'm looking for people that actually know more modeling and more data. So just to kind of illustrate, and that was years ago, right? So final relevant point is that in my current company, I had a lot of issues with that, where, you know, when I joined, what a data scientist was and an analyst was weren't very well defined. And there was a little bit of overlap, and that created a lack of clarity around roles and responsibilities, which generated confusion. And so step one, what we did is we're going to have data scientists focus on modeling rather than doing analytics and doing experimentation. We're going to do experimentation goes to analysts, and analysis go to analysts, reports go to analysts, and data scientists only do modeling and build machine learning models and so on. And with the help of, you know, engineers, we can productize that with that in production. But that's, as we started doing this, what we realized that we're asking a lot of our analysts, because we're asking them to learn Python, we're asking them to learn statistics, we're asking them to learn DBT, right? DBT, for those who are not familiar, is a data build tool, is you know, the most popular open source data engineering tool. Is so everyone in data knows about this tool, but that's where you can build production data pipelines, right? And that's accessible to analysts and data scientists, rather than just building, like, you know, ad hoc queries. Anyways, long story short, what we realized is we're asking too much of them, and that role is no longer an analyst role. That is kind of somewhere between like ML and like analysts, and it's more like maybe this isn't the new definition of data scientist for us. So what we did is very recently we transitioned where our team no longer does analytics. Our team does data science. Analytics is more owned within the different business units, where people, no, it's demystified. Like, people can pull their own data. Like, we encourage them to learn SQL. Like, people can build their own reports. Like, we're focusing on more strategic, more technical work, where you require a certain types of skills. They're technical, such as the ones I mentioned, and the data scientists move that into ML scientists. And all they do is to build ML models, right? ML and AI models. So that's the distinction that we have right now. And business analytics is a function that exists in the business units. Data science is a technical and strategic function that, you know, you do a lot of experimentation within the product, especially. So, you know, statistics, you know, Python, and the ML scientist is the person that is actually building models that go into production. The data scientist builds models too, but those are models that are used for interpreting data, for kind of providing insights. They aren't necessarily going to production. So that's the difference. Hopefully that was somewhat clear, but the answer can be, it's changing over time.
See, that makes sense. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like it starts out, you have maybe a clean, calling it data scientist, but then with all the different changes that happen so quickly, and like you pointed out about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so forth, that it just kind of gets blurry about what you're doing. But for people who will be watching this and listening to the podcast, and if they were interested in moving into the space, what would they need to have? And I know from the way you described it, it's not clean cut. You know, would you need to be a software engineer who knows how to code, or do
Yeah.
you have to just be really great with numbers? What are some of the things
Wow.
a person could do to move into this space?
Yeah, that's I think the good side, I would say the challenging aspect of it is that there isn't a clear like set of skills. I can definitely mention a few, but it really depends on depends on the role, depends on the company. The good thing is that there are all kinds of flavor of data science out there, and so there is probably something that fits your requirements, right? What you're looking for in kind of the skills you're trying to develop. So I would say Python. Definitely, whether any working data, whether it's a data engineer, a data scientist, a ML scientist, BI, like you need to know Python. That's a Python and SQL. It's what connects our entire organization. We have about 60 people. Everyone knows or is learning Python today in SQL, right? So that's a thing that you need to know. I would say for a data scientist, you definitely want to know like the basics of experimentation, A/B testing, causal inference, hypothesis testing, basic distributions, all of that stuff. You want to know that, um, and I think the basics will probably take you really far. And I would say finally, like basic ML modeling, like basic ML, like you building a cluster analysis, a regression analysis, a classifier. We're not talking about big LLM models or deep learning. It's like you can use scikit-learn, and that's going to take you very far. The final thing that you need, I would say, is business acumen. Like you need to know about the business. Like that's one of the biggest challenges. People coming from academia is that you live in a kind of a bubble, like a different world, but where we can just focus on that technical problem. But here in the industry, right, in tech world or whatever, you really have to understand the business and have to apply that knowledge and produce something valuable and impactful. And so I mentioned a few things. I don't know if that kind of answers all of the questions, but I think there is some commonality around all these roles in terms of kind of a certain core set of skills.
I really appreciate that breakdown because, in my understanding, it's always been that it seems to me that analysts seems to focus on internal stakeholders in terms of what are the questions that the business throughout its operation just naturally has and needs to get answered. That might be more of an analytics function. Whereas, data science is almost like trying to productize data and analytics in terms of how can we improve the product or improve the feature set so that it can, have that incremental impact or that increased scope. But perhaps it's really just about kind of the underlying competencies or the skill set that's different. Is that a kind of a correct summary, George?
Well, actually, I really like what you just said about. I never thought about it that way, to be honest. Like, where um, where like the analytics is more focused on kind of internal things and operational things, and data scientists are more focused on the product and or like features and customers. And I think it's a nice distinction. Nice distinction. I don't think it's a one distinction fits all, but it's a good one that I hadn't necessarily thought about. But definitely the skill set matters. Like you can go farther, you can build data products. And I know the term data product, I can actually spend time talking about this. Term data product can mean so many things. It's so unclear, nobody knows what it is, but you can actually build data products. And by that, I mean, you can build a pipeline, you can build a model, deploy that. Like if you have the proper support, you can actually write code, period, right? And I would recommend people to, if you are a data scientist, to actually write code. I think that could be another distinction. Like you write code versus you use Excel, right? So it's a combination of things, and the focus area matters, right? And the technical skill matters. You could have an analyst that is looking to the product features, et cetera, and that person might have a lot of value, et cetera, and it's not a data scientist. But if you are a data scientist, you can go deeper, you can get more business value, you can find stronger opportunities, and you can do things that no one else can, um, because we are all gladly or thankfully becoming more data literate, and things that were difficult to, and tools have improved. So things that were really difficult to do, now they're becoming easier to do, and people are becoming more encouraged to become their own analysts, and so um, I think to distinguish yourself or distinguish or like make yourself a bit more kind of different or add more value, I think that doing something that is more technical and more difficult it becomes more important, right? Like the idea here is the need for data is increasing. We can't be hiring more and more analysts to solve this problem. So people are figuring out how to do it themselves. While the more technical team, they are building tools that are self-service, where you build some code or some streamlined application, people can start using it, building their own report and gathering their own insights. Stop here. I feel like I'm going all kinds of directions, but hopefully I made some kind of point there.
No, you have. And, throughout your career, you've led analytics, business intelligence, data engineering, data science, machine learning teams. How has the criteria or the interview process that you as, the head of the team, the head of the function, the executive, the hiring manager, how has that changed over time? Over, this past discussion, you've alluded to the fact that it's certainly become a bit more technical. There's even an expectation of coding requirements for some roles. How else has this position evolved over time?
Yeah. Well, it's difficult to answer in the context of there are so many different roles that we're talking about. But I would say that you caught up on the theme. Like we are building a technical team, so technical skills are very important, and those are skills that are difficult to learn on the job. And so yes, we tend to favor PhDs when we're hiring like data scientists, right, or ML scientists. Like especially leaders, yeah, we first thing we look for PhDs, right?
When you say PhDs, are those PhDs but no software and coding, or PhDs just smart, know a lot of stuff?
Yeah, because there is something about the kind of thought process, right? The curiosity, the investigation, and the collection of tools that the person has built up over time. And so usually technical PhDs, right? People that have done computer science or engineering or economics. Yes, we look. My recruiter maybe is to blame for that a little bit because she already knows. She just comes to me, hey, I want to focus on PhDs first because I know it's important for you guys. And so we do have a little bit of a bias there. Depends on the role. If I'm looking for not a data science or ML person, but I'm looking for a data engineer, that's not as relevant. Like we would certainly prefer someone that has a master's degree. Can you do a good job without those things? Of course you can. It's just a matter of like kind of facilitating these biases. They kind of help with narrowing down to the right candidates. But going back to the question, so we're building a technical team. So we favor a lot that we screen a lot for technical competencies, like we talked about. But those gladly are actually very easy to screen for. You can run tests. You can do coding exercises. Those are actually very easy. The hard part is the behavioral part, where you're looking for people that are owners, people that move fast, people that they are go-getters, like they have initiative, and that is difficult to look for. And that's, so I would say the technical side in this kind of behavioral aspect of it, where you have critical thinking and you take initiative. That is those are kind of across the entire group. Those are things we're going to be looking for. The specifics of that is going to change, and also the more business oriented the role, the more business knowledge matters. Business acumen matters. Like a data scientist is going to have, or a BI engineer I think that the understanding of metrics and business that matters more. For a data engineer or a data ops engineer in particular, that matters a lot less because it's a much more technical role.
Now, is there a way from looking at the job description to figure out how a company or how a team might approach the distinction between what's, in the hardcore analytics camp versus machine learning
Mhm.
versus data science? Like if I am trying to break into a company, what are the kind of clear or easy ways or surefire ways that can help me figure out, does that team's current understanding of these disciplines and functions work with my experience?
Yeah, I would say go by the job description, like the actual requirements of the job, more so than the title. Unless you are interested in a particular title. But the titles, as we talked about, they can vary quite a lot. So different roles can have the same title, or the same role can have different titles. So I'll just go by the job description. This is that like let's say I'm looking for a data scientist role, and I'm gonna look at all these different job descriptions, and there's going to be a lot of different flavors, and you go for the ones that you believe make the most sense for you.
Got it. So the cheat code might be to have a more inclusive search and not just focus on the title then. Because there might be
Absolutely.
some
Yeah.
hidden data science roles that are mislabeled as analytics or vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, interesting thing is that interesting thing is that I heard this from others is that people like the data science title. Like if you're an analyst and you can get and I'm doing the same job at a different company, but that company has a data science title, they tend to appreciate that. Like they like that. They
Wow.
think more prestigious. Um, on the other hand, what I've also heard is that you are a data scientist at a company, but all that you do is to operate on Excel the whole day. And that can be very frustrating because you have those expectations for the role. I want to build models, I want to do that kind of stuff. And all that I do is like, Excel spreadsheets and BI reports. So I think it can go wrong both ways. So, or it could go right if let's say you do get that title that you want, but definitely go for know what you're looking for. Are you more interested in the title or the work that we're going to be doing? And so prioritize what you think is more important.
Now, in terms of kind of the fads of today's working world and tech generally, it seems like everyone also wants to have machine learning or AI in their job title. Can you help us figure out the skills and experience that are needed to kind of get into those roles? How to figure out, what is a hype up role versus an actual machine learning functional role?
Yeah, for sure. And so let's what's the best way to start there? I think one thing that there are different kinds of roles here that we can kind of break it up, right? So there is the person that actually builds models. This person, that's actually my background. That's what I used to do at very, very, very beginning of my career. This person, I would say, you want someone that understands the math behind the models. Like you can build a deep learning algorithm nowadays with like a couple lines of code, and you have no idea what's going on. Like, and still get good results. Or you can use XGBoost, which is super powerful tree-based algorithm, and get amazing results. I just applied XGBoost. But I think I'm definitely looking. I personally look for people that understands the math behind. They're not just applying a black box model, because that allows you to really understand, diagnose what's going on, come up with the best approach. Um, you're not limited by kind of your knowledge. Like you can actually go beyond the basics. And so I do look for that. And that would be, what my company, what we call the machine learning scientist. That person builds the models. There's also the machine learning engineer, which in some companies, that's what they do. That's the person that builds the model. So the titles could mean different things. Definitely someone that is more machine learning engineer and like engineering oriented, that person is definitely a coder. So the two competing skills here are someone that knows the math behind the models and someone that is a strong coder, like a computer scientist that knows kind of less about the math. So the engineer is going to gravitate more about the coding side. And the third role is the ML ops engineer. And so all these roles, and I'll explain what that means, but all these roles, they kind of blend, there's overlap, and companies could mean different things in different companies, but they gravitate towards a certain profile. And so the ML ops engineer is similar to the ML engineer, but they are building the infrastructure for you to deploy models and operationalize models, manage models. They're building APIs, and they don't build any models themselves, right? They don't have to know the math at all. So in one extreme, you have the ML scientist. In the other extreme, you have them, which all they do is to build models. They're not necessarily great coders. On the other side extreme, you have the ML ops person that it builds no models. All they do is to build the infrastructure, and the ML engineer lives somewhere in between. They could do, depending on the company, they could do what the data scientist or the ML scientist does, or they could do what the ML ops person does. So the roles kind of change depending on the context. I can continue, but does that make sense?
It does. What about if you take a rung down or two for like data analysts, business analysts? Is that a hot area as well?
Is there what?
Is that a hot area as well for jobs for people who want to go into this space, who maybe don't have the experiences that you have particularly, but they like numbers, they have an analytical mindset? Are there plenty of opportunities for people like that?
Absolutely. Like data is very hot. It's very hot area. There's roles, and I'm not a recruiter, but I have some folks in my network, and I was talking about the market. But by the way, don't quote me on that, because I know I'm speaking public, but that's totally anecdotal conversation. But saying that, we're talking about the market, like how is the market, like, are people still hiring? And my friend was saying, you know what, we're still hiring. The market is slowed down, but we're still hiring. And for data, it's actually pretty good. So you guys shouldn't worry about it. Software engineering is a bit, is having a bit of a harder time, but it's still hiring. But data continues to be hot. So I do see that in whether it's an analyst or a data scientist, or data is, there's so much opportunity, there's so much more data, right? The tools are improving, and there's so much more you can do with it. So those are roles that are, I would say, in all of those extremes, from the whole spectrum, from the analyst to the ML ops person. I think there are jobs for everybody, but if you're an ML ops person or an ML scientist, you're gonna get paid more, right? We can talk about that as well. Like an analyst is going to be a less prestigious job. The more technical you are, the higher the pay grade is going to be, at least in this field.
So let me ask this: hypothetically, if I had a son who graduated with a business and finance degree and a business analytics degree, is there room for this hypothetical son to kind of move into that space? Or it's really dominated by the more higher end type of jobs?
No, there's absolutely room. Like this hypothetical person could easily get.
And his hypothetical is Jake, hypothetically.
Is that Jake?
Yeah, it's my son. Yeah, Jake.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah. Jake. I think Jake could easily get a data scientist job. First of all, called data scientist. Now, the kind of job that he's going to do depends on his interests. If he is working Excel,
Python, Excel, R square, I want to say, and I don't know, some other stuff.
If he's working on Excel, like Excel spreadsheets, and querying data, that's one kind of that's the more you can be a data scientist, but it's not the most technical data scientist. They're one step above, where you are actually you know Python. If you know Python, you are one step above, because it opens up ML modeling. It opens up programmatic work, because think about, you can write code now at that point, right? And you can optimize your own work. You can automate your own work. You can do all kinds of things at that point. So you unlock a lot of value for yourself and for your impact. So it really depends on where he wants to live. And then there's the ML side of things. Like, do I want to know ML and build models? So to answer the question, absolutely yes. And those things can be learned. There is no mystery. And the question is, where does he want to live in the spectrum? But again, it has an impact in terms of how much he's going to get paid, right? Because the more technical the role, the more Python, if you know ML, if statistics, you're applying that to your industry, it's more likely those skills are higher sought after than, if you learn how to know you use Excel in your day job, and maybe you know SQL. That's really up to him.
And just about compensation, not for Rick, you might see this more on your side because you have so many people. For data scientists, do you have a sense of kind of total comp for these folks?
Excuse me. No, I mean, I have a sense of what we pay my company, and what we used to pay in other companies. I might be able to remember that. Excuse me. But it varies so much, depending on the company, depending on the specifics of the role itself, depending on the location. Location still matters. So I wouldn't be comfortable with like giving a number. I think if you go to Glassdoor or one of those websites, Indeed.com, a lot of these websites provide salary information. It's not far off. Like, that salary information is self-reported and everything, has biases, but it's a good kind of starting point for and again, it's imperfect, right? There's so many different flavors of data scientists. They're going to gravitate towards some average, but I do think that that's a good starting point if you want to know like how much a person makes.
Yeah. So generally, it seems like in terms of compensation, back to your point about more technical experience and backgrounds being kind of rewarded, it seems like analysts are on one end, and then data scientists are on the other, and then data scientists are on one end again, and machine learning engineers are on the higher end. Is that kind of a good summary there?
I think so. Yeah. So and I don't even know what an AI engineer makes nowadays.
Right.
Or like, because that role itself hasn't even been well defined. And I have some qualms about qualms, not the right word, but I have some concerns about kind of the whole AI thing. But I'm sharing my own kind of what I've encountered. I don't think this is a universal rule. And like, I even remember years ago talking to folks at Airbnb who said, all their three kinds of data scientists make the same, they're compensated the same, right? So it almost contradicts directly what I just said.
Right.
Right. So and so it really depends on the company, industry, et cetera, et cetera. But that's what I've observed over time.
No, that makes a lot of sense in terms of the folks that are able to code and be a bit more technical, where they're actually kind of building the models from scratch and figuring out how to optimize. They're going to be rewarded and more sought after. In terms of this AI craze that everyone is kind of focused in on now, you were in on the early days of that. You studied it in an academic setting. What is your take in terms of the general trend, the general kind of hype, you might even say, in terms of machine learning and AI now? Do you see companies adopting machine learning and AI without a strategy and kind of without a kind of strong understanding of what they might want to do with these roles? And as a result, do people kind of suffer if they take these roles, or what are your kind of
Yeah.
hot takes?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak, this is my personal point of view again. Others could have a different point of view and they're all valid. Like, but I think what's happening is incredible. Like what these models are able to do, like, for a long time, I would like look at the state of the art. I'm like, that's, that's not that impressive. Even deep learning, you're like, yeah, deep learning is it's amazing and everything, but but for it to do like certain kinds of things, it's gonna take many, many years, 40 years, whatever. But the whole LLM and ChatGPT, what we the kind of the transition that happened when we start to have a lot of scale and you have some of these emergent behaviors and so on, it is incredible, I think, and it's getting better. So I would say it has a lot of potential, a lot of value. We in our company we are using that stuff quite a lot, and it lowers the bar. I'll share a little bit of my experience with this. So it lowers the bar of how to get something out there. Like, not only you don't have to be a data scientist or an ML scientist to build something. Like anyone can build something. Any engineer can build something, and you can build something very easily. Like as long as you have the infrastructure to support that, and you can do some API calls, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to be a math genius, right? To put a model there. There are I find the LLM a great way to get a starting point on a problem. Let's say that I want to build a recommender system. Recommender systems are well understood. They can be complex. They're a fun type of problem to solve. Where recommender systems, for those who don't know, is like people who bought this also bought this, right? Or people who like this also like that. And we can build a super complex deep learning algorithm for recommenders. You have two stages: one initial stage that kind of filters out the candidates, and then you have a refined stage. Anyways, you can do all of that stuff. It's fun. I've done it, but that takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort. If I don't have anything to start with, I can just take an LLM and say, hey, the customer has this information. What are the top items that this person's gonna like? Boom, like, and it's going to be good enough to start. It's better than some other heuristic. So you can start putting out a lot of work that is interesting very quickly, and some of the more advanced stuff can still happen, but you already kind of collected a lot of the value earlier on. So yeah, I'll stop here because I feel like there are so many directions that this could go. So I will stop here. And the one thing I was gonna say is like the whole AI scientist is something that I'm still kind of trying to figure out what that's gonna look like. I'm sure there's gonna be an AI engineer. I'm sure there's gonna be an AI scientist. Are we talking about some person that has done like built and trained LLMs, and that's what they're gonna do in their job, like, and that role is gonna pay you $1 million or more, like, which you see in some of these companies like OpenAI and Google and so on. Is that what that means? I think that's a fair title, to be honest. I'm afraid that it's going to be similar to what happened to data science, where everyone wants to be an AI engineer, everyone wants to be an AI scientist, and I want to have that title because it's prestigious and pays more. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. So for now, I would avoid putting the AI label on any jobs I'm trying to hire for, because that's going to come with an expensive tag.
That's a good tip. Or you might, on your end, just get a lot of irrelevant job applications or resumes of people trying to chase that title and field, rather than being quote unquote true experts or functional experts at least.
Yeah, I think that's what could happen if you just kind of focus on the title. Yeah, that's the danger. But speaking hypothetically.
Sure. Now, for anyone else that's looking into getting interested or interested in getting a career in data science, business intelligence, machine learning, analytics, what advice do you have for them? What are the things that they must do now beyond the kind of core competencies of Python, SQL, having that functional experience with numbers and having that analytical, quantitative interest.
Yeah, it's interesting you said. Beyond that, first thing I was going to say, learn Python.
Yeah.
First thing I was going to say, if you want to get into this stuff, just learn Python, and kind of distinguishes you, differentiates you from everything else like that, all the more traditional analytics. But I would say kind of be curious, be self-driven, right? Like one example, I would say like degrees matter. Like having a master's degree matters. Like in this type of field, like and a PhD matters, but it's not a determinant. If you're self-driven, if all this information is available there, you can learn. You can go on Reddit and start like learning about data science, learning about ML. There are books, there are tutorials, there are YouTube videos, there's everything. So we do encounter people that are self-taught, and they do a great job. Like and those people have the curiosity, they have the excitement, they're passionate, and so that don't let that stop you. The fact that you don't have a degree is, again, degrees matter. If you can get a degree, it's going to help you, but it's becoming more and more common that people are self-taught because there's so much information out there available. So that's one thing. The other thing, whether you have a job or not, in this area, like stay up to date with what's going on. Like have a channel of I'm reading about the newest papers, the newest blog posts. I know what this company is doing, that company is doing, and I think that this is going to not only get you better at your job, get you more technical or kind of stronger. It's going to give you ideas for how to innovate, to bring those things into your workplace, and you apply those things to your day-to-day job. And so, yeah, I think that's extremely valuable. In my team, this is something that we value. Like everyone that is kind of data science, ML, we have a reading group, right? It's weekly, and it's sometimes it's like, oh man, it's painful. I have to read the paper again, and then I have to be on top of that. Like it's a bit of a chore sometimes, but man, you see the improvements in the team. You see the discussions become a bit more elaborate, deeper, and we start to do cool stuff. Right? So, oh shoot, there is this new LLM model. Like, let's say there's an open source LLM model that came out, and it's a lot lower cost to run, a lot less compute resources to run than Llama. Well, let's build this here. Let's deploy this. We don't know what's going to happen, but like we can deploy it. We read the paper. We understand how it works. And so, yeah, you can start doing some really cool stuff, innovating, and in the end, that brings excitement and brings kind of business value to the organization as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that advice because it seems like even when you're on the job, there's still a lot of leeway and there's still a lot of opportunity to continuously learn, right? About the new LLMs, about the new trends, about how different companies are adopting. But it seems as long as you have the same foundational experience in terms of, understanding how your job ties into the industry or businesses objectives in terms of how they might make money, uh, learning Python, learning those hard skills, you can still succeed in no matter which company or what title you have.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate this advice and this kind of intro into your field, into your functional experience. Thanks for coming on the show, George.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
guys.
George.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity.